Hey guys, it's your host Elex, and I just want to say thank you for tuning in to another episode of Mental Mixology. All right, this one is for all of the men out there. It is June, it is Men's Health Awareness Month, and you truly can't talk about men's health without talking about men's mental health. And shout out to one of our mental mixology listeners, actually, one of our male mental mixology listeners. He was the one who gave us the idea for our topic today. So, first and foremost, thank you. You know who you are. We appreciate your constant support for our nonprofit and podcast. We really hope you enjoy the episode today. But talking about men's mental health, there's so much that goes into that topic. I think men can attest. I think they've heard enough of men, it's okay to cry. It's okay to embrace your feelings and be emotional. Well, yes, in a perfect world, men would be really in tune with their feelings, but it's not that easy, and it's so much easier said than done, and there are great resources in this day and age for men to be able to utilize. Men, if you're looking for any mental health resources, if you go to mentalmixology.org, we have a national resource tab. Click that, go to our specialized category. There's a ton of great resources there, so definitely go check that out. But today I really wanted to hit on the psychology behind men's mental health because it's very eye-opening. So I was at a work conference, and my day job, we go to this twice a year. And it's really cool because the more you go, you start making friends with some of the people that go routinely. But a thing to note is when I go to these things, I'm a really small fish in a really big pond of really big fish. And I say this because I am standing around CEOs, CFOs, just like the bigwigs of all these companies. And this guy I look up to, he's always at these conferences and he is just the friendliest, smartest. And I say this because friendly, he goes up to everybody, he makes everybody feel welcome. Doesn't matter if you're new, if you'd been to the conference before, really awesome guy. He's smart because he's the guy in all the business meetings asking the questions that everybody's thinking and they're too afraid to say. But he's just overall like funny, humble, amazing dude that honestly I think anybody would want to be around. And I look up to him and want to be more like him as I grow in my career. And the crazy thing about I'm hyping him up for a reason, okay? So we were all drinking one night at one of the networking events, and we were talking about mental mixology. It was really cool. I was telling him about my podcast and the nonprofit, and he's like, here's some mental mixology for you. I drink a lot and I'm trying to cut back on it, but it's hard because I drink to help the fact that I'm so insecure. In the back of my mind, I'm like, wait, you, multimillionaire, CEO. I mean, he's like, I'm not kidding. It's like the guy that walks into the room and everybody's like, oh, what's up? I mean, it blew my mind. But it just checks out to show you that so many men, especially the men you're not thinking of, are the ones struggling so much. And he didn't go into like this vulnerable, like mental health deep dive with me, but he just talked about the fact that he's worked his whole life to get where he is. And he kind of thought when he was younger, if I make it to this point, if I'm a CEO, I own my own company, I have millions of dollars, that the self doubt will go away. And when he got to that point, he realized it was still there. And I don't know, for any guy listening, imposter syndrome, I think is something we don't talk about enough. And that is part of the psychology of men's mental health. But this guy, this successful, amazing human being, was dealing with imposter syndrome. And I think a lot of it comes from this arrival fallacy that we have with ourselves. If I finally make it, all my problems will go away. And we have to start understanding it's so important to truly chase after the things that you want in life, your goals, aspirations, your quality of life, and focusing on a sustainable way you can wake up happy. You wake up feeling blessed, and not every day is a great day, but getting yourself to where you feel good. Your head is in a good space. You could wake up, like I said, excited and happy for the day. That is, in my opinion, the ultimate level of success at this point in my life. And it's really hard. And it's been really hard for me to embrace that because, for instance, I went to college. I thought I was going to be a lawyer. And yes, I think I would have enjoyed being a lawyer, but a big reason I wanted to be a lawyer, I was like, I'm gonna make money. And I'm a workaholic. So I'm like, this is the perfect career path for me. I don't think I would have actually liked it, and that's the thing is I feel like if I would have gone to law school and pursued that career, I would not have gotten as in tune as I am now with my physical, mental, and emotional health. I would have really struggled going to law school, and I was doing that all because I thought that when I would be a rich, successful lawyer, life would be good. I wouldn't have problems, but that's not realistic. So, guys, it's normal. A really hard thing in regard to imposter syndrome that men also have to deal with is as a society, and I say this because I am a single woman looking for my godly husband, we have very high expectations for men. And a lot of women they're looking for a man who can be the breadwinner, who can take care and support and protect. And what we believe is a standard that we're giving men to be able to reach. And women, we have one too of like have babies, clean the house, yada yada yada. We're not going to get into the nitty gritty of that, okay? But with men is you are looked to be this foundation, this strong foundation. And a lot of men probably have this imposter syndrome of like, okay, if I get to this point in life, I will be able to be this rock solid foundation. I'm going to be so. You constantly are thinking that to yourself. And then when you reach that point, you're like, okay, shoot, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. Like, what do I do now? And that's why, as I mentioned, reaching your goals is really important. When you go home at night, and you go to bed and you're like, I'm miserable. I have so much on my mind. I'm at my breaking point. I'm burnt out. That has to be your focus. Just token of advice. Make it a priority if you're a man listening to this to give yourself something to look forward to every day. And it might take some time to get to that point. But, even if you can't get to that point and like you have to go further back of like, maybe I should start seeing somebody. Maybe there's online therapy options. There's a lot of deep diving anybody needs to do to truly be able to gain control of their mental health. And a lot of it happens from childhood. If you look back to how you were raised, things you went through as a child, and you take that roadmap all the way until you're present right now, if you're struggling, that is a great way to pinpoint maybe why this imposter syndrome, where it's coming from. And like I said, I am not a professional, but for me, as I've gotten older and I've really started to gain control of my mental health, being able to look at my timeline, talking to the men in my life and learning their timelines, you learn so much about why you are the way you are today by going back in the time capsule and seeing why. Truly, it's common for men to use alcohol as a shield. That was another thing is it's like 1 in 5 men, I believe, deal with substance or alcohol abuse. And I'm never going to shame anybody from drinking because like I said, I mean, I personally do not drink a lot. If I'm at a work conference, I'm milking a drink because yeah, it's not really my thing. Some people really enjoy it, but it is a crutch for so many people. One, I think knowing that that's your problem, that's a really great start because a lot of people don't want to accept that they're using that as a crutch. There's people in my life that have dealt with alcoholism, and I have personally had to have a sit down conversation with them and be like, hey, I love you, but this is starting to affect our relationship. And that's where I'm not kidding. I learned about the whole timeline. Like, let's go back into the timeline. And this person took me down their timeline, and it was good for me because I opened my eyes up to like, oh, dang, okay, like I see why you're doing this now. It doesn't make it okay, but perspective, it's wild. It will blow you away. It will better your relationships. Gaining perspective is crazy, and gaining perspective on men and, like I said, why they might be over consuming something is huge. Men, if you are, like I said, take that timeline, go back for yourself. Now, I want to talk about really what true vulnerability looks like, because that's another thing that we tell men to do is like, hey, be more vulnerable, be more in tune with your feelings and emotions. But vulnerability isn't crying to your guy friend or your loved ones. Being vulnerable is just when someone asks you, how are you? Instead of the typical, like, I'm good, bro. Be honest. The way to kind of hack that is get one person, a group. Really, one person is all you need, but somebody in your life that when you have the conversation of how are you, you're honest. Like, hey, I'm really stressed out about this project at work, or hey, finances are really tight and I am sweating being able to pay rent, or like, not good. I can't sleep because my younger sister has an autoimmune disease and we don't even know what's going on. Because if you are even the first person to start like that honest conversation, not only is it going to one strengthen your relationship with that person, but it's going to open the gate of comfortability for them to be able to have that same conversation with you when they're struggling. And it might not be right then and there. Like, "Oh, yeah, me too. My work's stressing me out as well." It could go like that, but opening the door to that conversation, that is how you're vulnerable, is just being honest. You don't have to cry, you don't have to get all up in your feelings. Talk like a normal person about, "Yeah, this is pissing me off." And the cool thing about just being vulnerable in that way is you have somebody you can take a mask off in front of. And I say this not literally, but figuratively, because I think a lot of us wear masks. Are you the funny guy, the angry guy, the oi serious, or I'm too busy making money to have feelings? Something along those lines. There should be someone on this earth that we all can take that mask off in front of, be ourselves, be open, be like, hey, I'm struggling, because we all need somebody. And I say this because we are going to go into another psychological point of men's mental health, and that is emotional isolation and also hyper independence. And men struggle with this because society praises men for being lone wolves and hyper independent. And psychologically, hyperindependence is often just a trauma response to emotional neglect. And that's why I think that going back in that timeline is super important, because that is how you can truly map out emotional neglect you might have gotten in your past. Because let's be real, if a boy is taught that crying or showing fear gets him mocked, his brain will wire, I'm the only one who can protect me. And it's so hard to unwire your brain, especially if that's how you're running years and years on end, which a lot of men do. And that's why men deal with mental health in silence, is because a lot of them are struggling with the emotional isolation. Like a guy will start a multi-million-dollar company working hours and hours on end, basically develop like a health condition because they've been working themselves to the bone. And they're doing this all because they don't want to just admit, like, yeah, I wish my dad would have told me he was proud of me when I was younger. It's so much deeper than we think. And man, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you're dealing with this. And I'm sorry that you haven't always gotten the grace and the space or the ability to be able to look back and identify this. We all go through a lot of different trials and tribulations. But the hard thing for men is they're the ones that struggle with that hyper independence so much. Because women, yeah, we deal with it, but society doesn't praise us for it. Society praises men for it, and that's what can be really tricky. Society doesn't want women to do that. And that's why it's hard for men, is because they're expected to do that. And when they are still trying to figure out why they feel the way they feel, what in their life has impacted the person they are today, it can be maintaining that good headspace that can be such a challenge, because they think that they have to do it all themselves. They will have one thing go wrong and their brains will be wired to a point where it's hard to unwire and unravel kind of the mess that was made. And we talk about men being vulnerable, and this just happens with them being honest in conversation to one another. But, how can you guys truly start having these conversations to where it's not weird? Because truly, what can drive men's mental health, like I said, is one, realizing that imposter syndrome, it's always going to be there. There is never going to be a point in your life, no achievement, no amount of money that is going to give you that I feel good, I've made it. You're never going to be able to outrun the self doubt, all in all. That's why truly doing something that is sustainable for your overall mental health, your overall health, and the longevity of this whole game is so important because, yes, you're chasing the money. Yes, you're chasing the career. Yes, you're chasing, I don't know, whatever you're inspired to do in life. But if you don't wake up healthy and happy a majority of the time, we live a short life. You want to be happy. You really have to self reflect. And that goes back to the timeline we were talking about. Because if you go back to, okay, why am I acting this way? Why do I feel like this is how I should be living life? Why is this what is wired in my brain? Going back to the root will help you better gain control of what it's doing to you today. So if you're dealing with the emotional isolation or the hyper independence, go back and be like, okay, why am I like this? And if you don't have that person, it might take time. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry if you don't have that person that you feel like you can be open and vulnerable with. To be completely honest, there are so many services online. I mean, 988, there's like the crisis text line. Even if you just want to get it off your chest to somebody that doesn't even know you, there are free services online. Like I said, check out our resource tab online where you can spill your guts to somebody and they don't even know you. But it's scientifically proven to just ease stress in your body by just telling somebody about something going on. And this is kind of the next point I want to go into with this is if you are somebody who a man is opening up to you, listen. A man honestly just wants you to listen. I assure you. And I think that is the reason why maybe some men redact opening up is because they'll open up to somebody and the person wants to give them solutions or wants to get involved. Stop. That is an easy way to get someone to just retreat back and not open up again. If a man opens up to you, just listen. Another thing too that I always like to ask people too, and I would say the first time someone opens up to you, this is not the time to bring this up, but do you want me to listen or do you want a solution? And I think that's a good way to be able to listen to people too, because some people they'll talk to you and they're like, I want advice. Or some people are just like, I just want to tell somebody. I think it's very important for the initial conversation to just let somebody be open and let them just share and don't say anything. Don't make it about you. Don't be like, hey, this, and this. Just listen. And then if it keeps happening and you grow that relationship, then that's something you can be like, hey, after they spill everything out, be like, "You can keep going. I Do you want any solutions or do you just wanna keep talking to me? Because either's fine. But listen, I promise people just wanna be heard." Then another psychological little tidbit I wanna talk about is side-by-side communication. So, psychologically, men bond and communicate differently than women. Women often communicate face to face, direct emotional sharing, while men often communicate side by side. So, a good way to think about this is when me and my girlfriends are painting nails and chatting and catching up, we're face to face, like, oh my gosh, yes, yes, yes. Men are normally standing by each other watching a ball game or they're hunting or I don't know. Guys aren't the face to face. They're standing next to each other when they talk. It's not this one-on-one type of conversation, like really intimate conversation, okay? Now, men, please realize that this is okay, this is normal, and this is why women or anybody thinking about these conversations with men in their life, don't make them feel uncomfortable, don't hit them face on, okay? Because mental health is something that it's not gonna be nobody's gonna be thrown off if you bring that up. And I'm gonna be very honest too, don't be afraid to ask somebody, have you been thinking or considering suicide? And people get weird about that, but I'm telling you right now, they have told us like the mental health training I've done for text lines, et cetera, you saying that is not the first time it's come across their mind. So you're not putting any new ideas in their mind, but it is really important to know if you think it is at that point. Truly. But like I said, when you are having this conversation, it is really awkward. People are not 100% comfortable. So that's the thing. When you are going to talk about a man about their mental health, don't hit it this face to face, same as girls, like, "Oh, yes, yes, yes," because they will shut down really quickly, or they might not be honest with you, and we're working on men being more honest about their feelings. Also, anybody who's not a man and you are trying to help a man in your life, there's a really big responsibility on your part to be an open ear, to be a shoulder to cry on. Because I'm telling you, men, the people in your life, they would rather there's oh my gosh, Patty Pimbleton, uh, said this in one of his interviews, UFC fighter. He lost a friend to suicide, and, he said very well, "I would rather someone cry on my shoulder than carrying their casket on my shoulder." And that's so real, because if a conversation or just letting somebody know something you're dealing with or a battle that you can't figure out or this hole that you can't dig yourself out of, you tell one person, it can make all the difference. Just being honest, being open. And you know what? If you don't want to burden somebody with that, there are so many resources out there. And I know it's nerve wracking to even imagine talking to a therapist or, I mean, even not therapy, go to a life coach. Um, if you go to our podcast episode library, we have so many resources we talk about that help with mental health. Go to the gym, get a hobby. I mean, you have to find what works for you, and it is going to be a trial and error process. You're not going to do one thing and you're like, "Ooh, I'm cured. I feel amazing." It's taken me 3 years, give or take, to feel like I have my mental and physical health in a really good place, and there are life events that destroy that and knock me back down so many times. And you have to realize it's realistic that you're gonna have to keep bringing yourself back up, getting yourself back to that good space. But you have to find the standard. Okay? Think about it like this. Every business has a standard. You hire on at a job. If you are not working at the company standard, you could get fired. Well, you don't know if you are under or overachieving until you get that standard. Well, it's really hard to know my mental health is unraveling. I need help. If you don't have a standard of like where you're good and where you're not good. So it's really important to gain that control because men, you have to realize there are people that are going to be looking up to you at some point in life, no matter where you go, what you do. And you guys are under so much pressure and so much stress. And I admire you for it. I promise you other people in your life admire you for it. And I feel for you that our society has always told you to be a man, not to cry. Everything's going to be okay. You have to be the backbone of the household. You can't be emotional. And then now it's 2020 and we're like, be emotional, cry, it's okay. But then we're also asking you to do this, this, and this. There's a lot of expectations you guys deal with. But discovering yourself can open your eyes first and foremost. Going back to day one, seeing how your past has affected your present and it, how it could affect your future is so important. It's so important to have that person that could be by your side that you can have that honest conversation with. You can cry on their shoulder because you know what? They might be looking for that person as well. You never know. But please, please reach out to somebody, open up to somebody, start that conversation with a single person because heck, the conversation you start may save a life. You don't know. And even little things like hanging out with somebody, like, hey, let's go on a walk or let's go to a pasta making class and driving a conversation from that point of, hey, how are things going? How are you doing? And that's the other thing is you have to pick a good time and place. You can't catch somebody in a weird position to have them have that, honest conversation. I'm not gonna ask somebody about, their deepest, darkest secrets in the elevator on the way up to the office. So, there's so many ways we can approach this, and there's so many things that we could do better about men's mental health a day at a time. See what's not making you happy. See what is getting you down in life. Find your pinpoint and go down the rabbit holes from there. Discovering yourself is how you can gain more control of your mental health. Because honestly, you don't even know what you're dealing with, probably. You just know that you're not happy, or you just know that you're burnt out, or you just know that you have so much anxiety and you can't sleep. I don't know what it is, but you're not crazy. You're not the only one. And I promise it's going to get better. Just realizing that it's something you have to work on, like I said, that's the biggest part. When you realize, like, hey, something is not jiving, that's a good direction to start going down. As we wrap up, I do always like to say if you or anybody you know is in a mental health crisis, please call or text the number 988. Men, like I said, there's the crisis text line. If you really just go to our resource library, there's so many different avenues that you can go down to just have support, um, to gain guidance, to find, the kind of resource or there's so much under the sun. I mean, we've talked about men getting involved with yoga. So many things you can do. So make that a priority because, like I said, at one point in life, somebody might be looking up to you and you deserve to live a happy life. You deserve to wake up and be like, yes, I get to do this. Or you just deserve to not dread or to not constantly feel this worry and doubt. And I promise you can obtain it. You just have to focus on doing something to get to that point little by little every day, 1% better every day. If you can do one small thing to get to that main goal, like we always talked about, one little thing to get to a good mental health space, just got to keep doing it day by day, 1%. So, thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Mental Mixology. We are excited to bring you more episodes next week. Be kind to yourselves and be kind to others. Love you guys and happy Men's Health Awareness Month from me and my girl Stevie. Say happy Men's Health Month. Oh, look, she said it. You're so cute.